Certain cities act as cultural magnets, drawing in talent, innovation, and diverse opinions. From 1904 to 1929, the most important artistic center was Paris. In time, the notion of a specifically Parisian artistic phenomenon arose, an Ecole de Paris, School of Paris. Background: there had not been an artistic hub like Paris since Renaissance Florence. Foreign painters, sculptors, art dealers, and publicists began to descend on the city, some with financial means, others with barely their train fare. Certain artists, such as the suave Amedeo Modigliani, were already fluent in French. Others, including Chaim Soutine, had to learn quickly. These newcomers from abroad settled among the resident French artists, both native Parisians and those who had arrived from the provinces. Journalist André Warnod first described the multinational mix as an Ecole in 1925. However, this school was not an art movement linked by a manifesto, training, or shared political views. Rather, it was a group of artists who were united by a desire to follow a bohemian lifestyle, share their experiences, and choose, if they wanted, to attend Paris's numerous art academies and open studios. In this way, Cubists, Futurists, abstract artists, and figurative painters found common ground. Making a reputation. Most artists arrived to make their reputations. Of all European cities, Paris had by far the largest art market with upwards of 100 private galleries. Then there were the art dealers, many of who were often foreigners themselves. Two such men, Leopold Zborowski and Daniel Henry Kahnweiler, would grant fortunate artists an annual income in exchange for their work. Le Dôme Café, Paris artists of the Ecole de Paris regularly gathered at artists' studios and cafés such as Le Dôme in the Montparnasse district of the city. Ecole de Paris. Maurice Utrillo. B. Paris, 1883, D. Dax, 1955. Amid bouts of depression and addiction to alcohol, Utrillo found a distinctive way of depicting Parisian streets, landmarks, and churches. The illegitimate son of the French painter Suzanne Baladon, he was dismissed from school for drinking when just 16, and, on the advice of a physician, he was encouraged to paint. His first works were impressionistic in style. Between 1907 and 1910, Utrillo's paintings of Paris and the surrounding villages developed their own unique style, both architecturally strong and atmospheric. The period between 1910 and 1916, considered Utrillo's finest, was known as his white period, since he painted in shades of white mixed with plaster and glue to give texture to his buildings. Utrillo around 1919, Utrillo began to gain recognition, but his life was beset by periods of hospitalization for alcoholism and depression. Lifeline. 1883, born in Paris, 1903 to 2005, starts painting and produces over 150 canvases and drawings. 1907 to 10, paints impasto cathedrals and street scenes. Exhibits at Autumn Salon. 1922, exhibits work with his mother Suzanne Baladon. 1928, awarded the Legion of Honor. 1955, dies of pneumonia. Montmartre. Utrillo painted this view of the infamous Lapin Agile Cabaret in Montmartre about 100 times. See 1913, Oil on Canvas, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Jules Pascin. B. Vidin, 1885, D. Paris, 1930. Born into a well-off family of shopkeepers in Bulgaria, Julius Pinkas studied art in Vienna, Berlin, and Munich before moving to Paris in 1905 and changing his name to Jules Pascin. His work was initially influenced by Fauvism and Cubism, but his developed style was figurative and somewhat impressionistic, with light outlines, pastel shades, and a gossamer touch. Pascin's subjects included his family, cabaret artistes, and nudes. Occasionally, he made large paintings on biblical themes. Pascin's death came by his own hand on the opening day of an important exhibition of his work. The two sleepers. Pascin was an expert draftsman, and the drawing visible in his paintings is always light and economical. There was also an ever-present eroticism in the way he posed and dressed his women. See 1926-28, Oil on Canvas, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. Marc Chagall. B. Vitebsk, Belarus, 1887, DST Paul d'Events, 1985. Born in Belarus, then part of the Russian Empire, into a poor Jewish family, with 9 brothers and sisters, Marc Chagall had a happy childhood. His mother had particularly high hopes for him and managed to get him accepted into a good school that was normally reserved for non-Jews. Chagall studied art from 1906 to 1910 in Vitebsk and St. Petersburg. In 1910, he arrived in Paris and moved into a building known as La Ruche, the Beehive, because of its honeycomb network of artist studios. There he became friends with the avant-garde painters Robert Delaunay and his wife Sonia, who was herself Russian. Chagall's work developed under the influence of Fauvism and Cubism. He created a unique narrative style in which the dominant elements were Jewish folklore and beliefs, together with the village life of his Russian childhood. By the 1930s, he had achieved a worldwide reputation, and over the decades, he won many prestigious commissions. He illustrated books, made ceramics, designed for theater, and made stained glass, most notably the 12 Tribes of Israel for a Jerusalem synagogue. Lifeline. 1887, born at Vitebsk, in Belarus, 1906 to 10 studies art in St. Petersburg, 1910 moves to Paris, finds studio in La Ruche, 1915 marries Bella Rosenfeld, 1918 made Vitebsk's commissar for art during the Russian Revolution, 1923 returns to France, begins series of etchings, including Mauve, 1937 takes French citizenship. 1985, dies at St. Paul de Vence, near Nice. To Russia, Asses and Others, The Cow, Milkmaid, and Church in this Cubist-influenced, dreamlike scene are symbolic of village life. C. 1911, Oil on Canvas, 157 by 152 centimeters, Pompidou Center, Paris, France. The White Crucifixion. This depicts the horrors of persecution. A synagogue burns, an old man flees, and a group of Jewish elders bemoan their fate. At the center is the crucified Christ himself, a Jew, and a universal symbol of suffering. It was as if Chagall had foreseen the catastrophe awaiting Europe's Jews. 1938, Oil on Canvas, 155 by 138 centimeters, Art Institute of Chicago, Illinois, U.S. Closer look. Nazi attack. This depiction of a uniformed Nazi setting light to a synagogue refers to the events of a night in 1938, when drunken Nazis rampaged against Jews. The poet reclining. The reclining figure is Chagall, who was also an accomplished poet. He lays his head on his artist's palette, expressing the notion of his dual identity. This harmonious picture was painted while he and Bella Rosenfeld were on honeymoon. 1915, Oil on Millboard, 77 by 77 centimeters, Tate, London, UK. Ion context. Art Deco in style. Art Deco was luxurious, sleek, and angular, employing expensive materials such as jade, chrome lacquer, and ivory. Art Deco was popular in both Europe and the US, and on the ocean liners that traveled between them. Paris Art Deco Exhibition, 1925. This exhibition was important in showcasing Art Deco design internationally. Tamara de Lempicka. B. Warsaw, 1898. De Cuernavaca, Mexico, 1980. In 1918, de Lempicka and her Russian socialite husband Tadeusz fled the Russian Revolution for Paris. She soon gained success painting high society portraits. Her art owed a little to Fernand Léger, but it fitted in well with the prevailing Art Deco style, since it exuded stylishness and finesse. By the 1950s, her work had fallen out of fashion, but in recent years it has found a new audience. A Cosette and Rose. This skillfully composed portrait of the artist's 10-year-old daughter fills every available centimeter of canvas. 1926, Oil on Canvas, 116 by 78 centimeters, Musée des Beaux-Arts, Nantes, France.